Hey everyone, we're back. The 20-gallon long, the giveaway for one of you. We've already got the full background and sides, cork background sides, the outsides painted with that flat black. And so we're ready to dive in to build the interior of it. So for this one, I'm going to add a really thin drainage layer using the LECA, the lightweight expanded clay aggregate. I wouldn't probably be using a drainage layer at all if this were my own tank. Something like this, that if you're going to be misting it by hand once or twice a day, or maybe even every other day, or just even spot watering your plants, or a mixture of those things, a drainage layer is not really necessary if you have enough experience doing those things and you're not going to just completely overwater or overspray to where you're to the point that your soil is saturated and just soggy wet, because that's the whole point, right? Like the drainage layer is basically just a safety net to ensure that you're not gonna overwater and overmist. It's going to catch all that excess water that drains down through the soil. That's the entire point. It's a reservoir for that, and it's going to catch all the excess rather than the soil just being saturated and then creating, root rot for your plants and building up anaerobic bacteria, which when the soil is completely wet and there's no more oxygen in it, that's where anaerobic bacteria comes in. They grow with the lack of oxygen, anaerobic, and they are what create foul odors, and they can actually lead to build up toxic compounds, which are also harmful to your roots. And it's just no good. You want to have that drainage. So because this is a giveaway, long story long, I'm going to put the drainage layer in it because I don't know the experience level of whoever gets it. And I just want to make it easy. And then you want your separation between your drainage. You can use screen like this. You can buy in big rolls, just kind of like basically your window screen is what this stuff really is. And you can buy it with all different size spaces between the squares. The downside I feel to this is that there's always going to be some level of soil that can get through it and leach into the drainage layer, which really not that big of a deal if it's not that much. A little bit of soil through into your drainage layer is not going to matter. It's not that big of a deal. It's just that you don't want your drainage layer to be covered with all your soil. Like if it ends up being 50% soil, and it's kind of defeating the purpose of having a drainage layer. That's the only downside to this. I do, however, like this because it basically lasts forever and it's really tough. It holds up well. I like that it's got enough space for roots to easily pass through of the plants and like continue to grow wherever they want. But this is one option. This is usually what I go with for drainage layers. And like I said, you can get it with smaller and bigger gaps. I think the smaller, tighter gaps is more expensive, but not bad. My local hardware store sells this stuff in pretty big rolls that are like 3 or 4 feet for like $7 or $8. So it's pretty cheap. Then your other option are these fabric filters, which these work great also. In my experience, the soil doesn't leach through these as bad. However, the thing that's a downside for me of this material is that it does break down, and I don't like that. So it's kind of pick your poison on whether you want to use the screening material and you're going to have a little bit of soil leach through it, or you want to use like a fabric where you're probably not going to get soil leach, but over time this will break down. Like if you have this tank set up for years, and that's the downside to this in my opinion, but can use whichever one. Okay, so in front of the tank, pop the lid off. So I've got this bucket of LECA I've already pre-washed it, just rinsed it. I rinsed it through at least a few times You really want to make sure to do that because this stuff comes super dusty. Wherever you're getting it from, I've always found it comes really dusty. But rinse through it a few good times. I have a nice big, like, deep sink with like a drain filter, so nothing goes down. And I just rinse in here a couple times, dump it all in there, rinse it through, wash it all through, move it around a lot, and it helps. It works great to rinse everything through. So yeah, I'm just basically going to dump it straight in here. Want to be a little careful not to just thrash it down to the glass. I don't want it to break, just cause cracks. Well, that was fun. Set that down. Like I said, in this one, I'm doing a thin layer, so we're not going to get it, I'm not going to have 2 or 3 inches thick of a drainage layer. This is going to be maybe an inch at most, and I think that's plenty. But leca, super easy to put in. So that's how much. So you can't really, it's under the rim of the tank. So I think there's more in there than what's shown right now, but it's maybe an inch thick. But it's got a full layer. That's the perfect amount for any excess moisture to run through the soil, and then it will hold in this little reservoir here rather than just saturating the soil and causing root rot and anaerobic bacteria and all that stank you don't want. And then, like, as you can see, the natural color of it too, they do blend nicely and look pretty good, especially from the front. Let's get the screen material going. Excuse me. So we got this, definitely mismatched, but it just needs to cover the full bottom. You can put a screen in, you can take it, you can kind of cut it up to where the edges are all slightly extended. You can do it to where it's right to the edges. It's really not that big of a deal. You're going to have some amount of soil that leaches through. It's not the end of the world if it does. It actually fits like perfectly widthwise. Get yourself a knife and then just cut up the edges. I'm going to cut it a little high. Makes it easier for me. Cut that piece out. So then the soil will fall against that and be held up plenty. Edges I'm leaving, those are like perfect. Front edge, I don't want to cut the glass, so I'm going to actually pull this out. I mean, that's really as simple as this can be. This is all going to get soil now put on top of it, just going to hold it all down and keep it in its place where it's at. So like that square that I just put there, you don't have to glue anything or do anything like that. Covers all the way to the edges. Good. And that's really all that it takes. We got our drainage layer in. We've got our screen material in. Simple, easy, in place. I just want to get a thin layer started in here so I can kind of see where things are at, how it's looking. Actually just going to be just enough to finish. So just leveling this out, I just kind of want to see, like I was saying, just get a base layer in here started so I can get the screen settled down where it's kind of going to be, get the edges all pushed in where they're going to be. Just give myself a good reference point to what I'm building off of level wise. You can see the separation there, pretty cool. That's your drainage layer, excess moisture, water, gonna run through that. and then be held down there in that reservoir. And then as you can see also from the build, like where my cork levels were on the background, almost all the way up to this spot. Some of the spots are already over it, the cork, but that's what I was talking about while building those, is like those are going to be covered up, and this is how they're going to get covered. If you couldn't visualize it, then now you see this is what I'm talking about. All right, so you guys can see I kind of started putting some branches and stuff in here, a couple pieces of cork, just to kind of get a feel of where I want to put things, or what pieces I want to put in here and how I want to do it. I'm going to be adding more soil, so this isn't going to just be the base depth, because right now it's pretty shallow. There's only maybe an inch, if that, not even, probably closer to half an inch of soil in here. So I'll add more of that in, probably get a couple inches, and then start really putting pieces in and kind of figuring where I like them. I like these, got a couple like half cork tubes in here that create really good natural burrow ways for whatever organism you get in here. And they're really awesome too when they're half tubes down on the soil like this, because then they encourage natural burrowing. So if you have scorpions or tarantulas, or maybe even some small reptile amphibian species that would do okay in a tank like this, will go underneath these tubes, and if there isn't enough space for them, they'll dig out into the soil and dig it out, which is great. That's awesome enrichment for them to actually be able to do that themselves. They also like really tight, cramped spaces for when they're hiding. Like almost all reptile, amphibian, and vertebrate species, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, that's too small, and like you give them these big, huge dome hides that have so much extra space in them, and maybe they'll utilize them like if that's all they have, sure, but they're almost always going to try to find the area where they're like cramped into it and barely fit inside, because that's where they feel the most secure. I mean, it's the same in nature. If you've ever gone out herping or trying to, flipping rocks or whatever, like that's where you find things, right? Is in the tightest, smallest spaces, or you're pulling up a board or a rock or whatever, and then you find something. They want to be like, they want to feel secure and have that tight space. So really these shallow tubes like this that are, when you put them down and it's a pretty small amount of area inside there, is perfect for them. That's what they want. That's what's preferred. And it's not always just about what's aesthetically pleasing for us, but it should be more so for the comfortability of whatever animal you're putting inside here. I mean, in the end, right, that's for them, not just for our enjoyment, but they're the ones living in it. So I think making it as close to what we can for them to what nature would be, and giving them the conditions that would best support their healthy behavior, is what we should all be shooting for. Just to give another view of what's going on so far. So you can see the separated drainage layer, a little spillage into the drainage layer there, that's okay. But the soil, it's about 1.5 inches deep in the front. It's deeper toward the back. And then how these tubes are laid down right now, like that little gap in the front of this tube, like I said, kind of a little viewing window, which is cool if anything's in there. So I'm thinking that's where I'm going to go with those 2 cork pieces. And then I'll add some of these branches, like the options here I was saying, and got some more, and I'll play around, see how I want to put all those, and where I want to put plants as well. So I'm going to take out these pieces and then take some mental pics of where they're at. You know what I mean? Get those put back in how I feel. This was the other cork tube piece, by the way, kind of this half tube, open bottom, which I think is cool. Like they can crawl all throughout, the different areas of it underneath. But obviously things could also be changed. So whoever ends up with this thing and you want to change things up and rearrange and build it how you want, or take plants out or put new ones in or do whatever, totally doable. And it wouldn't be that hard to do. So, that would be Your call, not mine. But for the way I'm going to set it up, maybe I'll keep it more simplistic. So no moss, simpler plants, and then, but it is more of a temperate design idea that I'm going to be going forward with. So I'm going to add more soil. And like, you know, my soil's got the worm castings, it's got leaf litter, it's got some coco coir, like already in it. I think this is a good soil. It's lots of nutrients in it for the plants. It's pretty well draining, holds moisture well, kind of dialed it in. Cool. So that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And you can also build up your soil depth. Like if I'm going to have a certain, you know, if you want like a fern or something and you're going to plant a fern here and it needs a good amount of soil, like you build up this corner real deep and put a fern there, and you can play with where your soil depths go and totally adjust everything based on what you're putting where. So this one's got a couple ways it could go. Like if it's sitting flat like this, it kind of leaves this whole side open and exposed, which is cool if it were facing, you know, like let's say right here in the front. You've got all that back now against it in an open front, but they would feel secure with this side unless there's tons of light coming through and they don't want that. But it'd be a cool viewing opportunity. Like you can visually see through, but then if you put it like this, then this whole tube is flat and then it's just the tube itself as a hide, but then it's kind of got this open end on this side where that's kind of a nice perch. Something can climb up on it, bask on it if it's going to have a light. Like I said, it depending on what kind of a climate you want to set up, if you change things. I kind of like that to where this is all down, so they have an enclosed tube all the way through the majority of this, and then this branch can come up kind of like that, and you can see into one side. Same with this one. It's kind of got this little dome shape here that you can actually view into when it's sitting down, and now all of this tube is enclosed to the ground, which it's small, but it still has area. And like I said, it's, you know, whatever organisms in here, if they want to burrow and go hide in that, they're going to appreciate those tight crevices. And if they need it deeper, they'll dig. But that kind of lays this whole tube down to where all the tube is enclosed, but then you can kind of have this little opening right here in the front and you can view into that, which is pretty cool. I like that. I like that. And then I got several different branches. So pretty cool pieces, some way different options, root options. This one's pretty cool. Got the little spindly roots all over it. Got some other pieces. This one's a pretty cool piece. A lot of twists and turns. Got a big piece here, like probably try to fit that in there somewhere. I think that's a pretty awesome piece. A lot of character, a lot of different curved and angled branches, like the big cluster. This one's pretty sweet. This is all spiderwood. It's just not debarked. So that's like the typical spiderwood you're used to seeing, you know, from a pet shop or wherever you're buying it. Anywhere it's been debarked, and so it's super expensive. This is just more natural spiderwood. It still has its bark layer on it. If I were to completely, you know, strip all that away, then it would be that really kind of like that bright light tan color that typical spiderwood is. Like a piece I think I have over here, like that, right? Like there's a chunk of like what you typically see for spiderwood. This is the same kind of wood. It's just not debarked like this one. So one of the pieces was this cool one here. Got this nice little curve on it, kind of a flat end. I thought this looked pretty sweet, and I kind of like it. I had it set here to where it almost hooks right into that gap on that cork piece. And this piece sets up against the side also, and it sits there really secure. I think that looks pretty sweet, like kind of like it's growing out of the side. Nice branch. I think that's pretty cool. Just purely aesthetics wise. And I don't know, whatever's in here, if it chooses to climb, it can. Grab this one back here. Got this big guy. That's super awesome piece. Tons of different branches and angles where it's growing. Looks pretty sweet. Now this one, definitely going to have to play around with and decide how I want to do it. I mean, with any of these, right, you got to play around and like, how is this going to go and what's going to look best? And that's part of the fun, is determining where things are going to go and where you're going to put them. For plants too, I'm going to do a few different little things. So I've got a couple different starts of creeping fig. Wandering dude, which I'll put in one creeping fig start that's growing well, doing good. So these can be fast growing or slow growing. Like a lot of things, and people say they're fast growing, and they can be, but I think it's all dependent on the conditions, right, for the plant. So many plants that are like typically fast growing, it's like, okay, if they're in like a really humid, ideal environment, or like really nutrient dense soil, all those things go into how fast it grows. Sometimes they're very slow growing and it takes a while, or like you put in some and then a year later you don't even really notice the growth, but you're like, oh wow, it's covering everything now. But I love these, like, and this is a variegated creeping fig, so it's got, you know, those kind of cream edges on it, which look pretty cool. I think that looks really nice. This stuff looks awesome to me when it starts actually climbing the background, which it for sure will do. Whoever gets this, you're definitely going to want to have to get a, you know, full spectrum light. I would recommend like a fluorescent T5 setup with just a, you know, something that's going to be nice quality full spectrum light for the plants. Because if you have zero light for the plants, they're not going to do well. Most of them will probably die. I know like these wandering dudes are pretty hardy, and I have them growing right now kind of in a low light setting. I don't have added light to them, so they're actually doing okay just with the natural light being next to windows. But they are getting a little leggy, but the more light you have on them, like the bigger and fuller they'll get, and they won't be as leggy, like reaching for the light, right? I'm going to do pothos also in here. I've got a few different options for different size starts that I've got. I mean, I could break this long one off and then it would really sit down in here. It almost pains me to do that, even the thought. I really like this side piece that I put in that I showed you guys up closer. That's kind of looks like it's coming out of the side. I think I'm going to keep that one there. And I'll glue that. I'll just use the gel super glue for the little contact points. Put it on, hold it for like 10, 15 seconds. Good to go. Like the gel super glue really works great for things like that you don't want moving, but you don't need to be as like hardcore as silicone. Like I siliconed this fungus on here, and I mean that thing's like rock solid on there now. I mean, you could break it if you wanted to, but any organism that's in here is not going to break that off. The super glue though is just nice, super quick contact, and then I think that's what most people use also for mosses. When you try to get mosses started on something, you're going to super glue it into place to get that first main patch going, and over time it will actually grab hold itself and then continue to spread with the proper conditions for growth. Yeah, I just keep moving this exactly the same. How do I want it? How do I feel? Always into song. Another thing too, you know, maybe some people worry about like cleaning, but like if these, let's say these cord tubes get pretty locked down to wherever I put these branches, and it's kind of like you're not going to move them, they're just where they are, unless you obviously dismantle things. But I'm saying, let's say it's like I glue some of these wood branch pieces in, they're holding down the cork, it is where it is. How are you going to clean underneath it? Things like that. because it's bioactive, this is going to have, right, a cleanup crew in it. You're going to have springtails, you're going to have isopods. Those microorganisms are going to clean all of those things. That's the entire point. You could add further if this is moist enough. You could put earthworms in it. You could add millipedes in here. Like, there's a bunch of different little insects that you could add that will help keep this thing clean naturally, and it's minimal cleaning necessary really by you. That looks pretty sweet like that. So this looks super awesome here, but I have to break this chunk. Nice piece going across the back. Tons of climbing options if whatever's in here wants to. Looks really cool. Gives it that kind of forest root vibe. It's pretty nice looking. Center is quite open. So this little knob's gonna have to break, which is a cool one, but I really like how this piece is sitting in this back corner. Yep, I'm gonna make the call. That's all right. This is still kind of a cool little piece that could go somewhere. Like right there. I mean, you could put this anywhere you wanted to, or some added little growth. Put it on the back, sides. These pieces are cool like that. You just stick it in somewhere, let it be. So it's what we're working with right now. Big chunk that you saw me break, sadly. That's okay. Because we don't have a ton of height in this tank. These are more terrestrial, obviously 20-gallon long. But I think that thing looks pretty sweet coming out of that back corner and reaching all over, kind of look that octopus look of the roots. It's pretty cool. That's got some awesome look to it. And then that corner, the top piece with that round chunk is nice. And with these small half tubes, you've got a height on each side. And then plants. I mean, this could even have a big foreground plant that's just in the middle, right in the front. And that's kind of your foreground, and leave some area open. And, you know, it could grow however it does and grab onto whatever branch it decides to. I think this is kind of how we're going to go with it for now. Something pretty simple like this. And get plants in. I'm going to have to get some super glue too, and super glue these contact points of the branches back here. A pretty good little setup here. I'm liking where things are at. The wood still needs to be super glued into place for the little contact points. I put another little piece up here in the front. I'll show you guys some close-ups of all this stuff too. And some more plants up here that I'm going to be putting in. So I have a couple different pothos right here. They're, you know, different stages. This is a younger one, some fresh growth on it. Pretty simple, just 4 leaves. This one's just 5 leaves, but it's a little bit of an older, more matured plant. It's just growing slow right now. And I've got another little wandering dude that's doing good, very purple. The whole plant, very pretty. I think it'll actually do better in here than where I've got it, because I've just got it in a really low light area. Excuse me, like I have many of my plants like I keep, but that's honestly probably better for keeping them adjusted to that, to be going into a tank if the tank's possibly low light. However, like I said earlier, do not recommend keeping this with zero lighting, especially if you are going to plan on keeping these plants in here. If whoever gets this decides they want to take all the plants out of it, then yeah, you could do a zero light plant. Like if it's a species that lives at room temp, like a lot of scorpions, like temperate species of them, or tarantulas do live at room temp perfectly fine. You need no heat lamps or added lighting at all for them. And often those species don't want any added light. It bothers them. Then you could take everything out and just leave it bare like this, no plants. And that would be great. It'll be totally out of my hands. But I would not recommend no lighting. If you are going to leave it fully planted or you want to add more plants, you need a full spectrum bulb for these plants to fully thrive. I think what I'm going to do, like I mentioned earlier, is leave the front of this pretty much just open. I think that kind of is a nice visual. Like you have your built up background corners, and then the forefront is more emptied and lower. And like I'll probably put one of these pothos right here in the center, and then it will have the whole thing to spread and vine where it wants to, because they do. They want to go up usually, but they will grab on and root to whatever they can, like epiphytes do. So yeah, let's play around. So the creeping fig, you want to put somewhere, or I would put it somewhere where it's close to the background so that it kind of trains it. You can also train it. Like you can use little plant pins, you know, keep some space around them, don't pin them tight, but, or you can even just plant this on the background, like take a handful of wet sphagnum and wrap the roots of this guy in that, and then just pin that whole wad of wet sphagnum around the roots clustered up and pin that into the background and just let it start growing. You can do that with a lot of plant species, like especially epiphytes, but I would put this on the background or near it. It is one small start, so this would definitely take some time to get spreading and growing, but you got to give it time. And I honestly appreciate those steps in a tank. I've always started my tanks with small plants. That's just how I do it. It doesn't matter how you do it and what you prefer, but that's how I do it. And then they grow over time. But then I really like and appreciate that. It's super fun to watch the growth of the tank and watch it evolve and change as it becomes more and more established and everything kind of shifts and natural balances of things. Some plants will do better than others. They're going to outcompete, you know, weaker plants, whatever. Some do well in the conditions, some don't do well in the conditions, some may die off. You've got to change them out or find a different plant, and you'll find one maybe eventually that does so good it just takes over, and like that's all fun for me. So I got some tongs. I don't know if I need them. Really don't know what the root cluster of this thing looks like. I'm going to just mix the soil. My soil, like I've said previously, like most of it is all the same base. I just make changes based on what climate I'm doing, but this is organic. There's no chemical fertilizers or anything with any of my plants. They all have organic fertilizers, which would be like your charcoal and leaf litters and worm castings and things like that. So quite a small little root cluster on this one, but it's very healthy. It's doing well and it's growing regularly. And I have just like that, just toss it in there. Okay, cool. And the way it's set right now, just by doing that, like that's it. It's already just leaned up against the background. That's where it's going to go. And it's going to probably over the next couple of weeks, going to latch out with those little feet, like some people call them, you know, the little roots. And then it will just keep climbing and it will spread on this thing over time. And in the coming months, you'll be able to see the growth. Plant one, done. This little thing. Oh, this little thing. I think I'm going to do this younger. Looks really, really nice. This one, probably going to plant right here in the front. break them up, loosen it up. Oh, wow. So you can see how root bound this one got. It's not even that old. It hasn't been in that pot that long, but that is crazy amount of roots that have just been bound up in there. So it will probably really enjoy getting a bigger area. So I'm going to just break some of this up, loosen it up. I'm not going to fully take it apart. There's no need to like rip roots further and stuff. I don't think, but then just gonna put it down to there. Soil. Get some extra soil here. Just pack down a little bit around the base of it on top of the root cluster. Let's get this one in here. I'm gonna empty it over a bucket. Actually, not that big. So you can see the root system on this guy. Really not that crazy. So just gonna open it up here in the center. Pretty much down to the screen. And the soil, these roots are broken up enough, they're freed enough, they'll go where they want. Just gonna make sure it's deep enough to where they have full coverage right here. And then just bury it back over. Make sure the roots are covered. And then I compress around the base of the plant slightly on top of the roots. Not too much, you don't wanna like hard pack crazy, but just a little bit. You can move it a little if you need, adjust it. But where it sits is where it sits. If it fits, it sits. Cool. And then it's just going to take, continued moisture, water, and light for these to keep growing. Okay. And there's that. And then this would be going back like so. Okay. More close up for you guys and gals. But yeah, I got that wandering dude, pothos, creeping fig back there. Small little start, wandering dude. One back there. It's dancing. I think that looks pretty awesome. And those guys are all going to spread and grow well. We got the build all done here. I'm just going to do some quick little final touches of super gluing the branches where they have their contact points, where I want to really keep them solid. So I use this little just Gorilla Glue gel. You want the gel so it doesn't run. You just put the dab of this where you want it, hold it for like 10 seconds, and you're good to go. I also added in an overlayer of leaf litter everywhere in here that you can see. So it looks pretty good. This thing came out pretty awesome. And I've got some little touches like this. We call it old man's beard. This is a type of lichen, which is actually a symbiotic relationship between fungus and algae. So it's a pretty cool mutualism. All right, guys. So that was this build. Got a few different plant species in here. Some really cool wood, some cork tubes for hides. I think it looks really great. Came together nice. Pretty simplistic, but still looks awesome. Whatever is in here is going to really enjoy this home. Like I say, this will need to have a light added if you want to continue to have these plants growing healthy. I'm gonna get this screen lid, put a cap on it, and it will have springtails and isopods as well already in here. And so the best way to enter, to try to get this for yourself, is going to just be to follow the instructions that are in the description. Those are going to have everything you need for what qualifies you and to how to actually get signed up for entry for this. And then I will be announcing the winner in a future video in the next coming weeks. Follow the instructions in the description. That's how you're going to get signed up. If you can qualify, let's see who can get this bad boy.